All right, we're living in an idiocracy from your boy Asmongold TV. Okay.
Hi guys, it's me again. Today we're going to talk about something that everybody has experienced, at least secondhand, and some people unknowingly have also experienced this firsthand as well. And that is going to be the decline of critical thought. This is something that I've been observing over the past 15 or 20 years or so, and I think that it's definitely started gaining momentum recently.
Oh man. Yeah. Um yeah, I mean essentially like whenever I was in school, like 1st through 5th grade, middle school, high school, a lot of the things I remember learning, they didn't really like transfer a lot in real life, I think. I mean, you got like your like your math stuff kind of transfers, but only up until a certain point. Reading helps, spelling, English, that stuff largely helps, but there's no real class that you take in, I don't know, school or something like that where it's called critical thinking. I remember a lot in like the exercises in the books. There would be like for the math stuff. Like there would be like your like long division, like multiplication, whatever, or like for the advanced maths, there would be like a page for like a single problem, and the problems would be, they would graduate from like just numbers only, when you had like 15, 20 problems on a page to like this like paragraph problem where it's like you read a story, this is the situation, this is what you have to figure out, and there would be those two words called critical thinking bolded in there somewhere. This would be like the critical thinking problem, which is like essentially like the real world application of this math that you are learning. And those problems I would always have the toughest time with. I don't know. I would just struggle on those problems. Um, Not a lot of other subjects in, I don't know, all my school or whatever. Not a lot of them had like the little critical thinking section in the workbooks, if I'm like trying to recall correctly.
And I want to explain and kind of talk about and explore why is that really happening. And this is a very popular topic in conversation and pop culture. There are things like idiocracy. There's the age-old question that people
Ah, luckily, I have seen that movie recently, and holy shit, it's true. It is actually true.
seem to be asking more often recently, which distilled down is something like, why are people so fucking retarded nowadays? And today, we're going to answer that question. And I actually think that there's a
Why are people so retarded? Well, shit. I mean, I don't know. People are people are a bunch of things. I mean, that's like a big, broad brush paint stroke when you say why are people so retarded. I mean, shit. I experienced so many retarded drivers just driving home from the gym. Does that mean every driver is retarded? No, not really.
number of reasons for this that make a lot of sense. And the first thing you have to understand is that you have to understand that people need an identity. And that identity used to be tied to a religion, which,
Mm-hmm.
by the way, required you to do the exact same thing that secular ideology requires you to do as well.
People need an identity. Um, I think this is. People need an identity. I'm trying to think. Did I need an identity when I was a little kid? Did I need an identity when I was a teenager? Or I don't know. I'm trying to like put this in terms of like age because it's like I think when I was like a quote unquote rebellious teenager, I wanted to have an identity, but now as like a 35-year-old dude, I'm just like I don't care about identity. This is stupid. Eh, you're just trying like I think this only matters when you're a teenager, like the teenage years. And then maybe from like 18 to like 25, you're trying to figure out who you are. You're trying to align yourself to like have some sort of identity or something. Maybe you just got done with college and then you're trying to find a job or something. I don't know. Because there's various things that contribute to like a person's identity, at least for me. I would always probably err on the side of it's the environment that you put yourself in that kind of creates your identity. What kind of stuff do you do? Do you go to the gym? Do you like music? Or like do you have like a friend group that you go play Magic the Gathering with or something like that? What kind of things do you watch? What kind of things do you listen to? What kind of things do you talk about? I think those are all like part of your identity. Um, and even like the socioeconomic stuff, like where you fall in terms of like how much money do you make? Does your parents make? Do you still live with your parents? How much money do they give you as an allowance or whatever? Uh, how much money do you get from your job that allows you to enjoy XYZ at your favorite activity or something like that? Um, yeah, there's just so many things that contribute to your identity. You're not too concerned with having an identity as much as you are concerned with just other things going on in life. You're concerned with bills. You're concerned with uh your like is your car gonna break down? Are you gonna be able to jump on your next Call of Duty match without worrying about whether or not the electricity or the internet is gonna go out or some other shit? Um, like the identity for me is like the last thing that I'm worried about. I'm just I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I probably have to think about it more.
But the religion was a little bit more creative about it, and let's be honest, a burning bush is a little bit more exciting than climate change, isn't it? But I can show you guys how there's definitely a correlation there. And so anyway, this begins as a kid.
Yeah, the whole religion thing. Like when I was younger, I think my mom and my dad tried to get me to go to church, but a lot of the times, whenever I went to church, I would just be like a good little kid and I would just like sit there, but I would fall asleep a lot of the time because I'm like, this is boring. Or like, God forbid they let me bring my Game Boy to church or something, and then I'm sitting there playing like Pokemon or Mario or whatever, and then like, I'm like, this is so annoying. It felt like punishment going to church or whatever. I was like, Jesus, this stuff doesn't ring. This stuff doesn't resonate with a little child. Regardless of like whether or not there's like a little kid version of you go to like regular adult church, and then sometimes if your church is big enough, they'll be able to like corral the kids into like the little kid version of church where like you do the little coloring things of like Noah's Ark and all this other stuff of like Adam and Eve, and it's like, oh, you're getting all this little like kid version of religion, or, Christianity and whatnot. But even then, I was just bored.
Kid. And I think that nowadays, kids, I mean, I feel bad for a kid nowadays. They're growing up, they're 2 and 3 years old,
Hmm.
they're getting addicted to Coco Melon, then they get older.
No, they're getting addicted to Prime. They're getting addicted to Lunchly. They're getting addicted to the song "Thick of It." Yeah, that's what they're getting addicted to.
They've got Mr. Beast selling them, chocolate when there's like,
Feastables.
oh, well, this is supposed to be healthy and it's not. They get a little bit older, they start, they turn 8 years old, they can finally write their name,
Hmm.
and then by the time they turn 10, they learn about galaxy gas, and then they forget their name again.
Yeah. Oh my god! Thank God I didn't have fucking like the wherewithal when I was in like middle school and high school to suck down galaxy gas or do what's it called, whippets, where something about like the whipped cream part of a bottle, like you like eat whipped cream or something, you just push that little white thing, or like you spray all the whipped cream out, and then you like, I don't fucking know. I didn't give a shit about getting high or anything. The only thing I cared about was like beating my friends in Super Smash. Uh if I needed to do fucking whippets or anything like that to beat them at Super Smash, I was like, I just didn't care. I just didn't care.
And so you think about it as a kid nowadays, and you're really getting spawn camped pretty hard.
Oh
But
yeah,
anyway, here's another.
the spawn camping of little kids nowadays and the ability of people to not admit it is crazy, with how many companies are vying for, not just companies, influencers too. There are so many just online people, because you know a lot of kids nowadays are just like iPad kids, and they just have iPads or whatever with touchscreens, and they're following their favorite influencer and whatnot. And you can only guess that what type of people are watching certain types of influencers, and you could, like, as a 35-year-old dude, you can kind of tell who's kind of catering to like a slightly younger audience versus someone who's catering to like an older audience with just the shit they talk about. And I can't say whether or not it's like shady or like kind of immoral, because that's like here or there. But the fact that it's happening, I mean, I could say that like, oh, it should be up to the parents. But come on, like, how many good parents are there in the world? Probably not. I'd probably say there's more shitty parents than there are good parents. Maybe that'll make someone angry.
Another component to it that's very interesting. Critical thought, and I think thinking as a concept, and you can think about this with IQ tests. With IQ tests, this, as with any conversation of nature versus nurture, it's
Hmm.
often a lot of times some from column A, some from column B.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of both. You can actually train yourself to become better at IQ tests to an extent.
Yeah.
And I think that also what's happened is that people have trained themselves to not critically think. And I think that what's happened is that if
People have trained themselves to not critically think. I think that's from the environment that they were in, not so much they were just born that way. I mean, if you look at like the medical records of how many people are just simply uh like more diagnosed with like being on the spectrum of autism, you could kind of lean into that. There's more and more people getting diagnosed with autism for whatever reason. Is it the microplastics? Is it the this, the that? I mean, who actually fucking knows? But I think it's just the environment that we're in. The generations that are being born like into a world where the internet is the norm, and the algorithm of any social media is just vying for their attention, to like click on me, interact with the video, click on the picture, up thumb it, down thumb it. Oh, because you interacted with this, we're gonna feed you more of this. And it just this continual dopamine thing of like, critical thinking is not something your body wants to do. Your body actively resists critical thinking. And if you're trying to critical think it's like, critical thinking is like going to the gym. If you are constantly trying to like push like your like hardest weight or whatever, your body will eventually break down. And if, I mean, cuz you can't really turn off thinking, you're always thinking. Um your body just does not want to critically think all the time. It doesn't. I don't know. Maybe that's wrong. But I'm not trying to critical think like every single solitary thing throughout my life. I don't know. Maybe that's probably where I'm at.
if you have, your brain, and you're thinking about things and you're trying to solve things out and reason them out, you train your brain. It's like a muscle, just like any other thing. And
Hmm.
if you don't
Jesus, why the fuck are we using the goddamn same analogy?
use it, you lose it. If you use your brain, you're able to use your brain more. And if you don't use your brain, you're not able to use your brain quite as much. And I think this has happened a lot where people are effectively mentally AFK. And I think that they go AFK.
Uh, yeah, that's probably true. The whole AFK thing, probably. I mean, I could probably like try to ask like why are people going AFK? Um, I could easily lean into the argument of a lot of people don't like their jobs, and when they're at their job, they mentally go AFK and just do the bare minimum to keep their job. I could say that. I mean, would anybody disagree with me? There's that aspect. But that only accounts for, I don't know, like people like 16 and above, or people that are like have the ability to have a job. What about there's a whole chunk of people that are like 16 and below, or like 15 and below. I mean, those guys are probably in school. I mean, so they're like kind of forced to be like critically thinking, or at least in so much to the degree that they're supposed to be doing schoolwork and so on. Um, but like once you're tossed out into the wild, like after high school or college or whatever, um, that lifestyle of trying to think for your like critically think, it's just not there anymore unless you have some sort of like support system. I mean, how many of me personally, like there was a point where after high school I like tried to go to college for like a couple years or whatever. I only got like an associate. Um, it wasn't bad, but I was able to keep in touch with some friends, and there was like some level of critical thinking that I had to do for the classes and whatnot. And even like when I was looking for a job or whatever, but like after there's like a point in time where like after you get a job and like you know what you're doing, I call it you're just in stride mode. You're just taking life at like one step at a time. You're on your stride. You're just walking the walk. You don't have to like push your mental capacity any harder or anything like that. And you're just on stride mode.
Quite early on now in life. Because back whenever we were kids, and by we, I mean all of the other boomers that remember 3,000 years ago in 1990, and we were kids, and we would be told, you won't have a calculator in your pocket. By
Yeah.
the way, Miss
Oh yeah, you actually do.
Williams, you're fucking wrong. Dumb bitch. I knew that she was dumb, and I was right. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is that we all learned how to do addition. We all learned how to do multiplication.
Hmm.
We learned how to divide fractions. And learning math is learning logic. And learning logic is learning how to critically think. And now that there are so many tools, calculators, things that you can take a picture of it and it just automatically solves the equation on your math test, there are all of these tools that people have for them nowadays that effectively take different instances of critical thought that a person would have to do, and now that critical thought no longer has to occur. You no longer have to think about this yourself because the app does it for you. You have computers now, and it's weird because,
Really? I mean, like a calculator is a tool. A calculator doesn't a calculator can't read your mind. ChatGPT can't read your mind. You still have to type in the things that you want out of it. Like you can't just think a thing. I mean, you could type something in. It's not necessarily going to give you the right answer in terms of like ChatGPT. Like math is like kind of a little bit more objective. Um, so what? Because the tools exist to not critically think, it's okay to not critically think. No, no, I'm just reading this wrong. Let me just listen.
You're having like this weird like historical bell curve where boomers, actual boomers, don't know how to use a computer, and then people that are around, I'd say like 40 to like maybe 25 or so,
Mm-hmm.
definitely probably know how to use a computer.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing now, this is really scary, is young people are now again learning how not to use computers. This is, by the way, another thing that Idiocracy predicted. And
What? How? How are they learning to not use computers? They're iPad kids. The iPad is a computer. Just Google how to do something. YouTube how to do something. Chat GPT how to do something.
there would be a bunch of like, wow, these machines, how do they work, nobody knows. Well, anyway, nowadays kids, because these computers are so well designed, they don't really break as often as Windows 98 used to, or
Yeah.
Windows XP used to, and you don't have to go into CMD to release and renew your IP address every single time you get a new router. It just does that for its own. It does that on its own. It does that for itself. And because of that, people never really learn how to use computers. They don't really understand how the computer works. And I think that the problem with that, and I actually, and here's what's really crazy about that, is that I bet people that are 30 years older than me, 40 years older than me, would be saying this exact same thing about us with cars.
I was literally, this is weird. I was literally thinking about that same thing, and it's like, oh, because we don't know, we don't use like crankshaft cars anymore. What? That's supposed to be a bad thing? We don't have to use like crankshaft cars or something like that, or a lot of people, a lot of the time, people are gonna, or at least for modern day, like I think a lot of people are gonna start transitioning into like electric vehicles, EVs. Um, and then gas and diesel stuff will still be around, but it will be like it'll be a shrinking market versus the growing market of EVs. I mean, it's. I mean, if we're gonna blame technology and technology being better and better, I mean, you could just look at the future and see what's gonna happen there.
Because now every car, you don't have to open your hood to figure out the way that it works. All you have to do is plug it into a little USB thing or a connector at AutoZone. It gives you an error code, and then you take it to the mechanic, and the mechanic fixes it based off of the error code.
Yeah.
Much better system. However, people know a lot less about cars.
I mean, but you just said it was a better system. Better system for this purpose, not a better system for that purpose. So it's better to identify problems, but not better at understanding the entirety. I mean, and again, I think we're trying to like figure out, is this like an overall good or bad thing that technology makes life easier? I don't know. I really don't know.
And I think the same thing is happening with computers now, because computers are becoming much more defined, tighter, more enclosed systems that don't require as much critical thought to reason out problems with them, because they're just better at solving the problems themselves. Or in some cases, you just get a new computer. It's called planned obsolescence. Very cute. And so
But doesn't this already exist with smartphones or just phones, period? Like, look at the beginning when phones, like, like the little tiny mobile phones started to come out. Like, I mean, for me, it was like when the first Razor came out. Like, Jesus, that's like really long ago. I think I was in like middle school when the Razor flip phone came out, and it was even cooler when you saw like the slide version of it in the Matrix movie, like the Matrix One, and it's like clicks the side button and it goes like, bleh. Nobody knew how those things worked, but you just need to know how to use the tool. And look at smartphones now. The iPhone 35. I don't know what it actually is. Nobody still knows how to use or how like an iPhone is made. Very few people do outside of like the manufacturing people. But like if you ask like a regular person that owns an iPhone, they have no idea how it's made. They just need to know how to use it.
So anyway, I think this is happening also with math. And every other form of critical thought is being outsourced to some sort of machine, to some sort of AI,
Hmm.
to some sort of thing that is external from yourself. So now the individual, the
Everything's being outsourced to a machine. I think this is because if you try to critically solve a problem, chances are someone has already solved that problem. And because of the internet, um, people want to just allow other people to let you have the ability to see how to solve that problem. So you don't have to critically think. You just figure out, find the person that had the same problem you did, look what they did to figure it out, and like try to solve it. And then it's like, hopefully your problem gets fixed. If not, you have to be uh, the guy, the person to figure out how to solve the new problem.
kid doesn't have to actually think about how to solve what is multiplication, what is a fraction, what is division, etc., right? What is algebra? They don't have to understand the logical implications of algebra because they have a computer that will do that for them. And I think the problem with that is that once you abstract so many avenues of critical thought, you, at a certain point, abstract critical thought itself. And
I mean, I would need a little bit more convincing. I mean, maybe.
the worst part about this is that it doesn't end in school. I think this has happened all across the entire culture. And every single group of people, and this is going to ruffle a few feathers here, and that's why I'm doing it. But there are a lot of things that, in my opinion, if you evaluate these things critically, you can easily see how they don't really make a lot of sense and how there is a common conclusion that any normal, reasonable person would come to. I'll give you two examples, and we can maybe do two more examples. The first example is going to be the really easy one. This is the one that a lot of people can probably agree on. Have you ever seen the graphs or like the charts? This is for the America people here, that shows how many areas are red versus how many areas are blue,
Yeah.
and they show, oh, well, look how many more red areas for Republicans versus Democrats.
Yeah, and it's like it's done on like a state by state basis, depending on what chart you're looking at. Or you could look at like a little bit more advanced chart, and it'll break it down by county of entirely red versus entirely blue. Or if you are able to find the incredibly rare chart where it actually shows you hues of purple and show you how much more division there is instead of an entirely red versus entirely blue map by county or, or city or whatever it is, which is a little more accurate. You know, oh my God, the purple color purple.
Why is it that, the races are so close? Well, it's because a mountain doesn't really have a lot of people living on it as much
Yeah,
as the same way a city does, for example.
yeah.
And so it's basically people that are willfully misunderstanding data. But the problem here,
Oh, okay. So he's trying to like show it's like, hey, oh, these states got a lot of fucking mountains in them. There's not a lot of people in there, but visually, this area looks more red. So this entire there's so much more red. Look at this big chunk of red versus like this little tiny chunk of like New York or something where it's like super blue, but it's like super densely packed with people. People can't really perceive that on a picture.
is that I think that we've had such a long time period of willful misunderstanding that people have stopped acting. And here's another one: climate change.
Hmm.
This is a really big one. Now, the big concept with climate change is not whether or not it's happening, it's whether people are causing it or not. Let's
Uh, uh, Whether or not it's happening. Let me see. I think it's agreed upon that it is happening. It's the rate at which it is happening. And as far as the cause, I don't fucking know.
use a little bit of logic here. If you light a cigarette in a room, the room will smell like a cigarette.
Hmm.
If you light a bunch of cigarettes in a house, the house will smell like cigarettes. If you have a lot of pollution in the city will have a lot of pollution in it, and it will be unsafe to breathe in. There are a lot of places, I think there's a few places like that used to be like that in China, for example.
Hmm.
So, in a theoretical world, it would be very logical that if you caused enough pollution, that you could negatively affect the earth in a bad way. this is somehow a bridge too far for many people. And many people are unwilling to even come to the conversation of thinking about whether this is happening or not. And I think the reason why.
I mean, again, I think it's not. Uh, I don't think it's a matter of whether or not it's happening. It's just the rate at which it is happening. I mean, essentially, is the temperature going up? Uh, is the temperature going up by this much year on year, or is the temperature going up this much versus is the temperature going up this much? I think that's more, and it's like, and even this, it's like you just look at the line. Who's to determine what is a significant increase versus a not significant increase? I mean, that's just that. I mean, because again, you could go back to what do you call it? Your chart where you're comparing like the red and the blue states, where like you can't really see the people, the density of people in New York versus the density of people in some random ass mountainous state in the U.S. You can't see the effect of pollution from a city when it's compared to the entirety of planet Earth. You can't really see it. I mean, if you can measure it, great, fantastic. But I think it's about the same argument.
Why is because that type of critical thought puts them at odds with the ideology that they subscribe to. And this is something that, again, religion, we used to outsource this over to religion, but because people don't believe in that as much anymore, now we've decided to invent our own new forms of bullshit that, as I said before, are much less exciting than Jonah living in a fish, just to be honest. And so here's another one, transgenders. Oh, this one's going to get people. Obviously, a transgender, male to female is going to have a biological advantage against a biological female. All other things considered
In a sport, I think he's talking about. Yeah, it's a sport.
equal. Any reasonable person knows this, and
Yeah,
you can easily see this too, that there are very few biological females to males that then go on to compete in sports at a professional or very high level.
yeah,
I'm sure it's happened once or twice, but I don't think exceptions prove rules.
yeah.
So the point is that all of these things are extrapolations of scientific reasoning and logical reasoning that, based off of which side of a different political spectrum you're on, you are not allowed to have these opinions. You are not allowed to think for yourself. And I think that's really what I'm getting at here,
Mm.
is that you are no longer allowed to think for yourself, because thinking for yourself eventually takes you off of the off of the reservation or off of the range that you are supposed to be living in. You never want to think for yourself because you could accidentally make a mistake. You could think too far. You could commit a wrong think. And when somebody does this, they get completely excommunicated. I think a great example of this is J.K. Rowling. J.K. Rowling said obviously the female experience is something that only biological females can experience in this unique way. Now, it doesn't mean trans women.
There's a lot of shit to like unpack. I mean, not kind of, not really. I would probably agree with him that like as long as you like with the whole critical thinking thing, as time goes on, more and more, not necessarily like scientific facts or like absolutes or, I mean, because it's all like by chance, like 99.99% chance that the sky is fucking blue. No shit. There's 99.999% chance that the grass is fucking green. Okay, no shit. Um, as time goes on, more and more things are just revealed to just be true, given enough time and like scientific research and whatnot. And if you start to think for yourself, I mean, regular people aren't scientists. Regular people just have, biases and are subjected to errors and stuff like that. Um, the whole thing with wait, you were talking about J.K. Rowling. Let me see.
Can't be women. It doesn't mean they shouldn't be treated like women, but
Oh, the whole what do you call it? You can only experience the female experience You can only feel a female experience if you were born like a biological woman. Um, as long as you look like a woman, I would probably change that because my probably chief uh argument against that is this guy on YouTube. Let me see. Is it this guy? Yeah, this dude. This dude. This is a dude. And when he puts on all his makeup, he looks like a chick. And he's got a bunch of videos him parading around and doing like pranks and stuff of him looking like a chick and going around in public and just existing. And it wasn't until I uh, watched this that I was like, holy shit, is this what it's like to be a woman, to just be subjected to like this type of environment? Just like, I don't know, like go watch this guy and you will see what it's like to just be constantly looked at, um and just, I don't know, eyeballed. You just have people walk up to you. I mean, granted, he is like kind of baiting and putting himself in situations to be walked up and talked to, but I'm like, this is objectively a dude. And but like when you look at all this stuff, it's like, oh, that kind of looks like a girl. So I mean, the whole J.K. Rowling comment of like you can only experience the female like experience if you're a biological woman. I mean, that's obviously not true.
The experience that trans women have is different than the experience that a biological woman has. This is a completely logical thing. I think that probably 90% of people think this, but people have to live with their mind in a cage and pretend like they don't. And what I think happens is that as soon as a person sees what happened to, let's say, J.K. Rowling, where she gets completely excommunicated by her group of people, right? Because she used to be a very like liberal person, etc. She got
I mean, and also, who the fuck cares about what some author of a magic wizard story thinks about transgenders? Like, is this the person that we are looking for or looking towards to get like objective opinions about about this thing? The person that wrote about magic?
totally excommunicated. Everybody hates her now. And she also, by the way, got way more radicalized to the other side. So it does have a negative effect too. But most importantly, the point that I'm making here is the fact that when you think for yourself, when you let your own experiences dictate the way that you see the world, you oftentimes come into a direct contradiction with the ideologies that you are part of. And people don't like to think. People don't like nuance. And I think this has always been true, right? I mean, we had Salem witch trials. They
Mm-hmm.
burnt Joan of Arc. Galileo was suppressed. I mean, we've always done this. But what's interesting nowadays is that it's done for a secular reason. And it's the interesting, circumstantial application of critical thinking when it's something that you've already agreed with the conclusion on. And I think that's what's really happened. And so you have people that are growing up in school and they ask questions. They, like, because, a kid thinks, like, like, why is this way? And, oh, wait a minute, you can't ask that. You can't ask these. You can't think about it like this because this is the wrong way to think about it. And so
I do not want to think about what it's like in modern day like American public school. Like it's got to be like walking on eggshells as a kid when it comes to like social issues. Jesus.
now you're stepping outside of that box that you're supposed to stay in. And I think this also dovetails very well into the way that cults work. Now, a lot of cults, there is a turning point, right? Whether when you're going from, the under level to the upper level of the cult. And this is the point where you are now given the arcane esoteric teachings of whatever madman decided to invent this cult. But before you do that, you have to do some form of initiation that oftentimes requires you to forego your own logic, forego your own thinking, disregard reality, and accept their version of reality as your reality. And the reason for that is it's a degree of commitment. How committed to you are you to this cause? in order for you to fully be part of our in group. And I think that now people are performing that initiation ritual at a mass level. They are basically performing the initiation ritual themselves for society to see. Oh, wait a minute, this person is actually part of our team.
Uh, I'd probably agree with him on that one. I mean, just look at what happened with the last election. Like the results speak for themselves. One side was going real hard on identity politics. The other side was going off on like a lot of other fucking bullshit. And at the end of the day, it's all really bullshit. Um, just trying to cater to, just trying to sell you on why you should vote for us. Um, yeah.
And it becomes more important that you are following the line of thinking, the like, the group of people that you think are, or that you're part of. It's more important that you follow their line of thinking than you follow your own line of thinking. And I think that that's what's really led to the decline of critical thought. And so you have machines nowadays that think for you. So you're not exercising that critical thought. You don't need to troubleshoot anymore because the machine does that for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also have society that's actively trying to suppress every form of critical thought that you can possibly fucking have.
Like, there's so many people that it would be nice to know if everybody had to go through some sort of form of, I don't know, like rite of passage to try to figure out their own morals and shit to see if they could, meld into society in like a righteous type of way to see if you can get along with everyone. But that's not really the case. We don't really have that. I think a lot of people don't even reflect on. They don't really question whether or not they don't really question their own morals. Um, a lot of the times, my ultimatum for, I don't know, myself or anything is, and I've dwindled it down to like a single sentence of how you want to exist in this world of friends over morals or morals over friends. And it kind of sounds silly. And um if you want to think how you want to think, are you like so I don't know, stubborn in your way of thinking that what you think is normal and righteous to sacrifice like everybody around you, like you're gonna burn all your bridges and whatnot in order for you to get the thought across that your line of thinking is correct, then you're probably gonna be like for the most part kind of alone um in terms of your morality. But the other side, friends over morals, uh, are you willing to sacrifice your own morals and ethics in order to like fit in with society? I don't know. It's like I've thought about this more and more, and it always it winds back to that sentence: friends over morals or morals over friends. I mean, you are a human. You do need some sort of like or well, not need, but you do kind of want to have like some sort of like social uh, you know, I don't know, attendance in society. You are like a kind of a social creature. You don't have to necessarily be like best friends, but you need to kind of have like maybe even like kind of some acquaintances. As much as like I like don't really leave my house, I still have to interact with society. I go to the gym, go to Walmart, go to my job, so on and so forth. Yeah.
Like, there are a lot of things that many people can always agree on, but because of political spin, it turns into being a controversial issue. I think things like lobbying or something like that, like gerrymandering, etc. But people contort themselves into doing gymnastics to justify them because these things are what is preferential or advantageous for their side. And I think that the more that you do that, the more that you practice not thinking for yourself. You practice not actually applying your own thought, not trying to evaluate things based off of your own experiences. And the worst of all is the fact that it's not that you're not thinking, it's that you're letting somebody else do the thinking for you. And I think that's
But I could easily just as easily say that even your own thoughts aren't even your own. I mean, because aren't you like an amalgamation of just your environment? I mean, the thoughts that you think now, you don't think somebody else thought, or you didn't get those two cents from like someone else. I, I mean, I kind of hesitate to even talk to people because I kind of know how the conversation goes. If like I'm trying to like even with my friends, it's like, am I talking to my friend or am I talking to like just a copy paste of whatever they just listened to and they're just like regurgitating whatever they heard? I'm just like, I mean, that thought does pass me, but like in the moment, I'm not thinking about that. But it does, tend to like, I do tend to like think about that more. I'm like, are these your own thoughts or are you just like regurgitating what Joe Schmo podcast said, and that's you just want to take it and throw it out there because it sounds good?
what people want, by the way. I think that there is a primal human desire to take all of your existential problems and then give them to somebody else, and then they're going to tell you all the answers. You don't have to think about this shit anymore because that's really complicated.
Yeah,
It's much easier just to watch football or
yeah,
play video games.
true.
So the fact is that that's why I think that we're losing a lot of critical thought. We don't have to use our brains anymore, and the times that we do are usually a mistake. And I think this is going to keep getting worse, by the way. It's going to keep getting worse and worse and worse until it reaches a fever pitch where it's just a unrecognizable reality and people have to turn around. But I think that, again, being able to, it's almost like, it's kind of like, I would say it's like virtue signaling, but it's like retard signaling in a way, where
Yeah,
now you're going out and you're saying these things, and it's like, okay, this is the person who's saying that. I don't want to give like a big list because it's going to trigger a lot of people in chat, but you're going into the NPC programming of certain people and you're saying the thing that you're supposed to say. And
hmm,
then once you do that, now you're part of a club. Now you can be accepted because you have decided to forego your own reality, forego your own critical thinking, and instead adopt the critical thinking and the reality of the group. And I think that that's why we don't have people that think for themselves. It's because
is there also something to be said about, isn't like on average a group of people more powerful than a single person? So when people start to align themselves with certain groups, they feel like empowered versus a singular person thinking for themselves, feeling empowered. I think there's something to be said about that. That's like another bullet point to add on.
they're afraid to. They're afraid to think for themselves because if they do and they think too hard or they think too much in one direction, they could end up ruining their entire life. And you see
Yeah,
this happen. You see this happen with someone like J.K. Rowling. Not like she's ruined her whole life, but it's just a person who is
yeah. I'm sure she's like sitting there or crying with all the hundreds of millions of dollars that she made from Harry Potter. Meh.
asking a question, who is trying to express their worldview, and they're completely hated by everybody. And I think that there are many such cases, and I'm curious, guys in chat, has there ever been an opinion that you think is just absolute common fucking sense, and then if you mention this opinion or you say this opinion, everybody hates you for it? And I think that the more of those that we discuss
I probably had him. I can't really think of any like off the top of my head.
and we talk about,
Besides, no, that one's stupid. No.
the more that we can get back to actually thinking as a form of coming to a conclusion rather than as a form of reverse engineering a conclusion. So it's like instead of making up your mind on what's true and then trying to logically justify it, you should look at logic and try to, inductively decide what is actually the truth. And I would love to see things go back to that, but I think the first thing that you have to do is you have to acknowledge the things that are not that. And I think that we have so many of those nowadays in our society. And again, people are afraid to step outside of that box because you can ruin your life for doing so.
Yeah.
And you see many such examples on social media and on the news. And I think that kids, again, are just getting farmed because they never have to critically think because machines do everything for them. And I think that's exactly what's happening. And things are just going to keep getting worse until, number one, people can acknowledge it's a problem, and number two, it legitimately becomes a problem. And I think you're probably going to see that in workplace productivity going down maybe in the next 20 years or so. But
Or going up in the next 20 years or so, because what we've seen happen is people get fired and the owners just create robots to substitute that productivity. So maybe it'll go the reverse. All hail Flippy.
But by then we'll have everybody replaced by robots, so maybe it won't even matter.
Yeah.
Either way, guys, that's what I think. So I'd be curious to hear, what is your example of something that is so critically obvious, but people try desperately to deny that it isn't true? And I've given some of my examples. Some people might disagree with them. That's totally okay. But, I think that many people have very similar examples. And I think that that is the real reason. And again, the lack of meaning and the lack of trying to identify with a group, or the lack of having a group to identify with, is the reason why people are willing to give up their critical thought and just immediately be part of that group instead, because it's a lot more convenient and it's a lot safer to do that.
Yeah.
So anyway, guys, I like making these videos. Let me know if you want to see more videos like this.
Yeah.
I feel like these topics are sometimes a little bit heavier, so I try to be funny with them as much as I can.
Mhm.
But overall, I really appreciate you guys watching them. A lot of people were really positive about the last one. So if people like them, I'll keep making them. And if they don't like them, well, if I still feel like it, I'll make them anyway.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot for watching, guys. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Hey everyone, so in my
Oh,
last
Jesus.
video when I talked about endgame book
Chill.
Me again.
Critical thinking in society. What a video. Is there going to be more of it? Is there going to be less of it? What's going to happen to adults? What's going to happen to kids? Is it going to just get erased? Are we just going to subsidize it? Are we going to incentivize it? I don't fucking know. Yeah, overall, cool video. And bro, I had to like really fucking struggle to like kind of keep up. I need some fucking Adderall or Ritalin, like, cause this the whole no drugs thing is just like I can't keep up. Like Jesus. Oh my god. But yeah, cool video. Keep it up. And bro, because like I saw the title and I'm like, oh, Idiocracy, the movie. Thank God I just saw it and I was like, oh Jesus. Okay. But yeah, keep them coming, dude, for sure. But another banger. Keep it up, and yeah, I'll catch you guys on the next one. All right, later.